The chapter that we're going to be studying today is from Honeydew and is titled The Tsunami. So, in the beginning of the chapter, there's given a map of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and it's explained as to what all the different islands present in Andaman and Nicobar. So, point number one is Kanchal is an island. It is a part of the Andaman group of islands. Nankauri is an island in the Nicobar group. Kachal and Nankauri are more than 100 miles apart. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands are to the west of India. The Nicobar Islands are to the north of the Andaman Islands. Now, a tsunami is a very large and powerful wave caused by earthquakes under the sea. On 26 December 2004, a tsunami hit Thailand and parts of India, such as the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Tamil Nadu coast. Here are some stories of courage and survival. These stories are all from the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago. Ignatius, spelled as Ignesious, it's a name. So Ignatius was the manager of a cooperative society in Kachal. His wife woke him up at 6 a.m. because she felt an earthquake. Ignatius quickly took his television set off its table and put it down on the ground so that it would not fall and break. Then the family rushed out of the house. When the tremors stopped, they saw the sea rising. In the chaos and confusion, two of his children caught hold of the hands of their mother's father and mother's brother and rushed in the opposite direction. He never saw them again. His wife was also swept away. Only the three other children who came with him were saved. Now, archipelago means a group of many islands in the surrounding sea. A tremor is a slight earthquake. Chaos means complete disorder or confusion. Now, the next story. Sanjeev was a policeman serving in the Kachal Island, the Nicobar group of islands. He somehow managed to save himself, his wife, and his baby daughter from the waves. But then he heard cries for help from the wife of John, the guest house cook. Sanjeev jumped into the water to rescue her, but they were both swept away. 13-year-old Meghna was swept away along with her parents and 77 other people. She spent 2 days floating in the sea, holding on to a wooden door. 11 times she saw relief helicopters overhead, but they did not see her. She was brought to the shore by a wave and was found walking on the seashore in a daze. Almaz Javed was 10 years old. She was a student of Carmel Convent in Port Blair, where her father had a petrol pump. Her mother Rahila's home was in Nankauri Island. The family had gone there to celebrate Christmas. When the tremors came early in the morning, the family was sleeping. Her father saw the sea water recede. He understood that the water would come rushing back with great force. He woke everyone up and tried to rush them to a safer place. As they ran, her grandfather was hit on the head by something and he fell down. Her father rushed to help him. Then came the first giant wave that swept both of them away. Almas's mother and aunts stood clinging to the leaves of a coconut tree, calling out to her. A wave uprooted the tree and they too were washed away. Almas saw a log of wood floating. She climbed onto it, then she fainted. When she woke up, she was in a hospital in Kamorta. From there, she was brought to Port Blair. The little girl does not want to talk about the incident with anyone. She is still traumatized. Now, relief helicopters were mentioned earlier, and they are basically helicopters which bring help to people. Now, recede means to move back from where it was. Okay, traumatized means to be greatly shocked and distressed. Now, Tilly Smith, a British schoolgirl, was able to save many lives in the tsunami struck Phuket Beach in Thailand. Though she has won a number of awards, her parents have not allowed their daughter to be interviewed on television and made into a heroine. Why do you think they took that decision? Coming back to the story. Now, there's a story from Thailand. The Smith family from southeast England was celebrating Christmas at a beach resort in southern Thailand. Tilly Smith was a 10-year-old schoolgirl. Her sister was 7 years old. Their parents were Penny and Colin Smith. It was 26 December 2004. Deadly tsunami waves were already on their way. They had been triggered by a massive earthquake of northern Sumatra earlier that morning. The water was swelling and kept coming in. Penny Smith remembered. The beach was getting smaller and smaller. I don't know what was happening, she said. Now, a resort is a place where people go on holiday. Triggered means a sudden violent reaction. Here, an undersea earthquake caused the tsunami. But Tilly Smith sensed that something was wrong. Her mind kept going back to a geography lesson she had taken in England just 2 weeks before she flew out to Thailand with her family. Tilly saw the sea slowly rise and start to foam, bubble, and form whirlpools. She remembered that she had seen this in a class video of tsunami that hit the Hawaiian Islands in 1946. Her geography teacher had shown her the class video and told them that tsunamis can be caused by earthquakes, volcanoes, and landslides. Tilly started to scream at her family to get off the beach. She talked about an earthquake under the sea. She got more and more hysterical. Now, hysterical basically means like when you are hysterical, you shout, laugh, or cry in a wild, excited way without any control over yourself. Moving on. I didn't know what a tsunami was, she said. But seeing my daughter so frightened, I thought something serious must be going on. Tilly's parents took her and her sister away from the beach to the swimming pool at the hotel. A number of other tourists also left the beach with them. Then it was as if the entire sea had come out after them. I was screaming, run. The family took refuge in the third floor of the hotel. The building withstood the surge of 3 tsunami waves. If they had stayed on the beach, they would not have been alive. The Smiths later met other tourists who had lost entire families. Thanks to Tilly and her geography lesson, they had been forewarned. Forewarned means to be warned beforehand. Tilly went back to her school in England and told her classmates her terrifying tale. Now, withstood means endured without collapsing. Surge is basically a force, momentum, and refuge means to take shelter from danger. Now, there is a picture in the chapter in which the tsunami has supposedly subsided. There is still water around, but not of that great force, and there's a boy holding a dog. The boy looks completely and utterly hopeless. This is what natural disasters do to people. They come without any reason. I mean, there is always a reason, but to the people who it affects, for them, it's like they lost their entire families because of something they didn't even do. It wasn't even their fault. It just had to happen. It was just nature. But they can't even blame anyone for this. And they lose entire families, and that's a very hopeless situation. Any form of natural disaster can affect you in many ways. Moving on. Before the giant waves slammed into the coast in India and Sri Lanka, wild and domestic animals seemed to know what was about to happen. They fled to safety. According to eyewitness accounts, elephants screamed and ran for higher ground. Dogs refused to go outdoors. Flamingos abandoned their lower-lying breeding areas. And zoo animals rushed into their shelters and could not be enticed to come back out. Enticed means to be tempted. Many people believe that animals possess a sixth sense and know when the earth is going to shake. Some experts believe that animals' more acute hearing helps them to hear or feel the earth's vibrations. They can sense an approaching disaster long before humans realize what's going on. We cannot be sure whether animals have a sixth sense or not, but the fact is that the giant waves that rolled through the Indian Ocean killed more than 150,000 people in a dozen countries, but not many animals have been reported dead. Along India's Cuddalore coast, where thousands of people perished, buffaloes, goats, and dogs were found unharmed. The Yala National Park in Sri Lanka is home to a variety of animals including elephants, leopards, and 130 species of birds. 60 visitors were washed away from the Patangala beach inside the park, but no animal carcasses were found. Carcass means a corpse, a dead body, except for two water buffaloes. About an hour before the tsunami hit, people at Yala National Park had observed three elephants running away from the Patangala beach. A Sri Lankan gentleman, a Sri Lankan gentleman, who lives on the coast near Gale, said his two dogs would not go for their daily run on the beach. They are usually excited to go on this outing, he said, but on that day they refused to go and most probably saved his life. So, this was the chapter called Tsunami. It's an overview of the chapter. It basically talks about tsunami that hit parts of Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. There are instances taken from different stories throughout these regions and have been combined together. They have been combined together and such a combining of, you could say, a large number of stories is called an anthology, but this is a more documentative kind of anthology based on true facts. So there's no writer of this chapter as such. They have been compiled, they're just facts. So there were a number of pictures of cars being washed away, of the Andaman Islands, their geography, houses destroyed, of Tilly Smith, and of the boy with the dog, which I already talked about earlier. So, working with the text. Now, one of the questions which has been given in this subsection of the chapter is, when Ignatius felt the earthquake, do you think he immediately worried about a tsunami? Give reasons for your answer. Which sentence in the text tells you that Ignatius' family did not have any time to discuss and plan their course of action after the tsunami struck? Something to think about, because when you're inside your house, you won't know if it's tsunami because they come because of earthquakes, right? The root cause is an earthquake. So when he saw his TV shaking, he placed it down. But by the time he realized what is actually going on, it was too late. He lost his wife and his children. Now, which words in the list below describe Sanjeev in your opinion? Cheerful, ambitious, brash, brave, careless, heroic, selfless, heartless, or humorous? I'm pretty sure you know it has to be brave and heroic and selfless. Brave because despite him, having saved his wife and children's life, and he could have easily run away from there, he chose to save other people's lives and died in the process. So he was selfless, which is the opposite of selfish. He was brave, which is the opposite of being a coward, and he was heroic because he died like a true hero. Now, what are the different ways in which Tilly's parents could have reacted to her behavior? What would you have done if you were in their place? It's a good thing, it's a good question to think about, because if you see your child screaming like that, most of the times parents believe that it's just their imagination. They don't usually take what they are saying that seriously, but her parents trusted her. So, this is something to think about. It's actually a really good question. What are the two different ideas about why so few animals were killed in the tsunami? Which idea do you find more believable? Now, Now, some fun facts about Andaman and Nicobar. Kachal, which I said earlier, is one of the largest islands in the central group. It is about 61 square miles in area. It is slightly hilly at the center, but otherwise remarkably flat. There's a short poem over here called Geography Lesson. So it's basically a description about what your city would look like if you saw it from 10,000 feet above the ground. Neatly planned and perfect in proportion like a geometric design, it would strike you as something very different from what it actually is while you're in the thick of it. Here's a poet's description of just such a view of the city and some questions that come to his mind. When the jet sprang into the sea, sprang means to jump suddenly, and in this case to fly. Jet sprang into the sky. So when the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability. Inevitability means something which cannot be avoided. But what on ground had looked haphazard. Haphazard means without plan or order. Unplanned and without style. When the jet sprang into the sky. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography, that land and water attracted man, was clearly delineated. Delineated means to be shown. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, when the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. The poet's name is Zulfikar Ghosh. So, the poem in the beginning seems very normal, but towards the end, the last para especially, it has a very, you could say, hidden message which all of us in today's day and age seem to be forgetting. It was difficult to understand that the men on earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities and to kill. The wars taking place in the country, or in the world rather, the wars, rebellions, acts of violence, rape, discrimination, all of this is still occurring across the world. But when someone is that high, when all of that seems not important, they realize that what's most important is to be human. And that's what we all should be. So, this was the second chapter and the poem Geography Lesson. The second chapter is called Tsunami. So, thank you very much.